Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video we'll be taking a look at the new Red Harvest terrain for Warcry and talking about how it's going to be used in our games. Once all the terrain's painted, I'll be making some proper rules videos to go along with my How to Play Warcry series. But in this video, I thought it would be fun just to look at the different measurements of each piece of terrain and talk about the different sections and the new rules as well. So just a general discussion and a little bit of a deep dive into the terrain pieces themselves. This new Red Harvest box set is brilliant, and when you put all the terrain together, it really fills up the board and creates an awesome battlefield to get stuck into. So really fun. I think there's going to be lots of ways we can play this. There's all different ways of assembling the terrain, so you can set it up in different ways each time, so it never has to repeat. And I mean, just looking at it here, it looks awesome. So let's take a look at each component, and we'll start off with the new boards. There are some great additions in this box set, including the better straight edge dice, but one of the cool things they've included are the terrain cards, so really pleased to see those. But with the terrain cards for Red Harvest, there's going to be some new rules, and it tells us that if a terrain card with the Varanite Delve Rumark that you can see here is in play, then we've got to use some different terrain rules in addition to the standard terrain rules that we can find in the core book, but also in the Red Harvest book as well. So when we use these terrain cards, then we get that Varanite Delve Rumark. It tells us we have to use a Varanite Delve battle mat, and that's the one that comes in the box set. And this is double-sided. Here's one side, and as we flip it over, you can see the other side. Great looking mat, really good contrast to all the other ones we've seen, and I think this is a really, really good mat to build on the whole narrative of Red Harvest. Here's some close-up images, and you can see it's so crisp, really nicely done, really bright and vibrant. Just looks stunning on the tabletop. You've even got the Chaos Cross there, just faded in. That's a really nice touch. But these have got more than just a visual aspect to them. They're going to get some rules associated with them as well. These are classed as Molten pits, and when a fighter moves across the battlefield floor, the centre of their base cannot pass across a Molten pit, and they can't jump across it either, so that's really interesting. The only exception to that is if they are 2 inches or more vertically above the battlefield floor, then they can jump across it. But if they're just running across the battlefield floor, they can't do a leap over the pit. So that's a really interesting rule. You can still shoot across it, that's no problem, but if you want to get around it, you've got to walk around or use that terrain, get up high and then do a little jump. So we treat this open edge as a platform. And that means that if an attack action targets a fighter within ½ inch of the edge of the Molten Pit, if they score any critical hits, the target fighter must take a falling test. And this is where it gets really cool, because if that target fighter falls as a result, they are immediately taken down. But fighters with that Gargantuan Rumark or the Fly Rumark don't have to take falling tests due to being within ½ inch of that pit. So there is some exceptions, but that's a really cool rule, so I really like this. Next up, we've got what they call sluices, but we can think of them as troughs as well, and you can see here that the height of some of those are 1 inch, and then in width they're going to be about 1½ inches, so plenty of room to get your bases on there and your miniatures can walk along it no problem. You've also got some taller sections which are about 2 inches tall, and these include some of the walls, and then the width on these are exactly the same as well. So you've got 2 different heights to play around with, and when you lay it all out on the battlefield, you've got loads of options because they're just little like modular pieces that you can build in so many different ways. So here you can see it laid out on the battlefield in one way, and it just looks really cool. And it says in the book that we can treat them as platforms, so you can walk along them. Don't worry about thinking them as troughs. When you measure though, just think of them as a platform, so you don't have to measure down that vertical part if, for instance, you climb over it and go inside the troughs. If you've got a miniature with, say, a 25mm base, so it's quite small, and that can fit in the centre, then you haven't got to worry about measuring the little drop down. Each of the sluices will have support struts, and these are like wooden support struts, and these are going to be classed as obstacles, so you'll be able to climb them and get some cover. And then this is the part that would be the platform, so that whole trough, consider it as a platform. So regardless of whether you're inside or on it, it's a platform. You've also got the same for these other taller sections. So, you've got the wall would be an obstacle, and then the platform would be on the top as well. So another thing that this does change is the cover rule. So it's going to affect cover slightly. So you can get the benefit of cover. Say, for example, if you're on top of the sluice and draw a straight line between the closest points of each fighter's base, and that line passes through or beneath the sluice, then you're going to get the benefit of cover. So that's really handy. So if you're up on the top of it running along, you're going to get some cover from any attacks. The sluices can also become hazardous, and we'll cover this in a little while when we look at the delve engines. But before we get to those, we've got these larger platforms to look at, and we can see that they've got those same supporting struts as well, the same wooden struts, but they've got the platform on the top, and that's 4 inches high. So we've got lots of different heights to play around with this set, which is going to be really fun. If you like playing Corvus Cabal, this is going to be awesome, but this suits the Tarantulas brood a lot, so bear that in mind as well. And then you've got this smaller platform on the right, which is 2 inches tall, so you could certainly, in a move action, you don't have to get right to the top in one go. Then you're going to see that those platforms again are played as platforms as far as the rules go, and the supporting struts will be classed as obstacles, so you can climb and get cover from them. To connect those up, you've got these 2 platforms that are included. These are real nice chunky pieces, really great. So these aren't going to fall off easily when you start balancing them across. Some of the ones on the previous sets are a lot more fragile and so a lot more lighter, but these are quite heavy and quite chunky, so they really stay in place. And they're going to be 2 inches wide by 6 inches long, so you can really cover a good distance there. And they're going to be classed as platforms as normal, so just use the regular normal rules for those. And you do get some of those lighter ones included as well, and they're about the same size, but the platform that you can actually stand on is not quite 2 inches, so it's a little bit under that, and then it's just over 6 inches long. So you get 2 of those included in the set as well, and then they're going to be classed as platforms, so that's nice and easy. Then we've got ladders, and you get 4 small ladders that you can build, and you can choose to either build them as 2 large ladders, or 1 large ladder and 2 small ones, or 4 small ones. And each small ladder is just over 2 inches, so if you put them together it's going to be just over 4, and then that's going to really help to place those on the different sections. So for example, you put that 4-inch ladder going up, a fighter can go up it and finish their turn still on the ladder, so we can use the ladder rules from the core book and the Red Harvest book. And I think it's going to be quite strategic where you place these ladders. Certainly for Tarantulas brood, for most of them you won't need this with their abilities, but if you're trying to play the Dark Oath Savages and you want them to scale and get some height, then that might be a good way of doing it with these ladders for sure. Certainly if their movement's not so good, like you've got the Godspeaker Sorceress, you can only move 3, so she's not going to get to the top of that 4-inch platform in one move action. So if she does an attack and then a move, it's not quite going to do it, but you can just make a note of where she is on the ladder so that in the next activation she can keep climbing. So that's a really handy thing to have to make those 4-inch distances scalable. And yeah, so that's one option you might want to use playing a more grounded and slower warband. Then we've got lots of these spiked railings, which are great terrain pieces, and I really like these. You've got those spikes coming out of the logs, and then you've got the different skeletons pierced on them, so really cool. So you get quite a few of those, and then you just play those along with the rules as normal and treat it as deadly terrain, so no difference there. And you can see from the box set you do get quite a lot. So there's a few pieces and they get a full sprue with all these different spiked pieces on, and so they're exactly the same as we would have seen in the Catacombs box set and also in the original core set as well. Now let's have a look at what I think is an awesome addition to this set, and that's the delve engines. And these bring some really interesting and cool rules that bring this terrain to life. So let's have a look at the first piece of terrain, and this is called a pit dredger. And you can see this has got some serious height to it. Oh, well, just over 7 inches tall. You've got a 4-inch platform, and then you've also got all those struts as well. So all the rules we've looked at previously will affect this, and you can use that. But I'll go through what parts you can't climb and things later on as we move through this section. But really great piece of terrain, really fun. Tricky to build, bit fiddly, but really good. Then we've got the Varanite Siphon, and it's weird that there's this kind of pump piece in the Warcry set and a pump in Kill Team Octarius set as well. So it's strange how they've got the similar piece of equipment in each set. So I thought that was quite interesting, but a great looking piece of terrain. I love that metallic monster face on the top. I think that looks really cool. And now going back to our pit dredger, you can see that you've got that platform and then you've got the struts. So all the struts are going to be classed as obstacles. So we can climb those and we can use them to gain some cover from as well. But any section that's not a platform or an obstacle is going to be classed as machinery, and that's going to be unscalable. Now that's a real shame, because I could imagine climbing up these, doing some acrobatic jumps and going up these little buckets. I think that'd be quite fun. So I may be putting in some house rules here to use that. And there's a cool ability with these that turn them on and turn them off, and so we'll see that later on. But I could imagine with this on, you could just picture those spinning around and then your fighters hanging on it, getting carried to the top and then leaping off. But that would be amazing. So I might introduce that. We'll wait and see. And we've also got the same here on our Varanite Siphon. So we've got a platform, we've got those obstacles from all the struts and everything. So you've got lots of protection there. But anything else is going to be classed as machinery. Now there's quite a lot of other things on here. And so you can see that chain coming down is unscalable, the wheel, and also that big monster head on the pivot. So that's going to be unscalable. But I could imagine if I could balance a miniature on there and run them up, that would be so cool. So I think, again, I might be using that pivot as a piece of terrain that you can maybe climb but not stand on. So you can't finish your move on it, but you could climb along and leap off it. And certainly imagine my Corvus Cabal doing that. So again, I might employ some house rules there. It tells us in the book that when a delve engine is turned on, there's a chance that fighters may be knocked or pushed into its moving parts, where they'll meet a grisly end. And to represent this, if an attack action targets a fighter that is within half an inch of the machinery of a delve engine that is turned on and scores any critical hits after that attack action has been resolved, the player controlling that fighter must roll a dice. And on a 1, allocate 2d6 damage to that fighter. So there's potential here for some serious damage. You certainly don't want to get too close to this machinery. So if you're trying to use it to gain some cover, that could certainly backfire on you. And I think this is a really interesting addition to the terrain and the rules. I really like this. It's a very simple rule, but it's got a lot of fun and it really brings it to life. But for it to work, it's got to be turned on. So let's have a look at the abilities and how we turn these engines on and off. If a fighter is within 1 inch of the operating mechanism of a delve engine, they can turn it on or turn it off by using one of these 2 abilities that you can see here. There's going to be 2 operating mechanisms. For the pit dredger, it's the push wheel, and that's the one you can see with those skeletons there. And for the Varanite Siphon, this is the valve. And so there we go. So each one has got an operating mechanism. So to turn any of those delve engines on, a fighter can use this ability only if they're within 1 inch of the operating mechanism of a delve engine, and it's got to be turned off. That delve engine is now classed as being turned on. Then roll a dice. You can pick a number of sluices equal to the roll to then become hazardous, and each sluice picked must either be connected to the delve engine or connected to another sluice that has already been picked. Allocate 2d6 damage points to each fighter on any hazardous sluices. In addition, allocate d6 damage points to each fighter that is not on but is within 3 inch of any hazardous sluices, excluding the fighter using this ability. So this is in the running for perhaps the longest, wordiest ability for Warcry yet, and there's an awful lot going on there. But I think breaking it down, you've just got to be within 1 inch to operate it. Then you can turn it on. Then you roll a dice. Then you pick the number of sluices equal to that roll. They become hazardous. So you have to pick the one that's connected to the delve engine first, and then any others that are connected to that piece after. So if you get a 6, you simply pick 6 all in a row, and you just imagine that as you've turned the machine on, it's dumped the Varanite into it, and then that's been carried along the sluice. So I like how they've made that work, and it just makes a lot of sense. But if your fighters are on top of those sluices, the hazardous sluices, they're going to take a serious amount of damage. 2d6 damage points to each fighter, and even just being within 3 inches of them, you're going to get 1d6 damage. So you really don't want to get close to any of these sluices at all, I would say. Definitely try and avoid them, and if you see any of the enemy fighters moving towards those operating mechanisms, either stop them or get away from those sluices if you're close enough. I think if you're more than 6 away from the actual delve engine, you know that whatever happens, if they turn it on, you're not going to be affected. But if you're within 6, there's a chance that those sluices could become hazardous, and then I guess you could take a risk if you're like the 5th or 6th one away. Maybe you've got a good chance of avoiding any hazardous ones becoming hazardous. I don't know, but there we go. I think this is really fun, and it's really going to make for some cool gameplay. Now there's going to be a time where you want to turn off these delve engines. Perhaps you want to get your fighters across a big section that is now hazardous. So you can turn it off with a triple, and a fighter can use this ability only if they are within 1 inch of the operating mechanism of a delve engine that is turned on. And that delve engine will now be classed as being turned off. You can pick up to 6 hazardous sluices to no longer be hazardous. So you don't roll, you just simply pick, and you can keep some of them as hazardous, so that's interesting. Each sluice picked must either be connected to the delve engine or connected to another sluice that has already been picked. So you can't just pick every odd one, you have to do it in that order as well. So there we go. Really easy to turn it on and turn it off, and I think that's going to be really fun when you play the game. I think it's going to be really cool. So there we go, that covers all the terrain pieces, an overview of all the new rules and how that could potentially affect gameplay and how you might want to use it in your battles. But really interesting, really loving this set, and can't wait to get the painting finished, and those painting videos will be up really soon. But I'd love to know what you think about this. Do you like the rules? Do you like the idea? Do you like the way that they're bringing the terrain to life and really giving it a job to do on the battlefield? Let me know in the comment section below. It'd be great to hear what you think about it. Look out for the other videos I've made for this, including the deep dive for the Dark Oath Savages and the Tarantulas Brood, also the unboxing, and there'll be loads more videos for painting and going through different ways we can assemble our fighters. And if you like the look of this Red Harvest box, I'll put some links to Element Games and Wayland Games where you can save up to 20%, making this great value, and I think you won't be disappointed. It's a fantastic game set. It's an affiliate links, but it won't cost you anything extra. You'll save some money and support the channel, as I get a small commission too. So if you do decide to do that, thanks so much. It's really awesome of you. I hope you enjoyed the video and this gave you a little idea about what to expect from this new terrain. But I'd love to know what you think, so let me know in the comments below. And thanks so much for watching. Please like if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. If you like this kind of content and would like to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon page, and thanks to everyone who's joined so far. It's really awesome. We hang out on Discord, talk about the hobby, share ideas and help each other out, and you'll get some perks there that you're not going to find anywhere else. So I'll put a link in the description, and it'd be great to see you there.